they're a poker player. Oh, it's funny. There's always a guy in the room who always laughs at the cheerleader part. Just to go back to this whole idea of people saying no. One of the episodes that I was really passionate about was the one about homeless kids, and I thought it'd be really interesting to do a documentary or do an episode about someone who was young and homeless, because I just totally could not relate to that. It baffled me. And we did some research. I have a research team, and there's 16,000 homeless youth in New York City alone. And I thought, well, geez, 16,000 homeless youth, we'll be able to find one that we can follow around and film for a week and be able to really capture their story. And we myself and a team of people went to shelters, would literally walk around Manhattan and Brooklyn and certain parts of it, different foundations, and we met hundreds of kids. And we just couldn't find anyone that, A, would give us access, B, wanted to do it, C, be able to, was objective enough to really, articulate their story or what they were going through. And we just got a lot of no's, and a lot of doors were shut in our face, and it was the same thing as room 335. And so I sent my team my team went to San Francisco, and there's quite a few homeless youth there, and they went around with a flip camera. A flip camera, which I want to film you guys doing something later, but a flip camera no bigger, like this, and just went around San Francisco just asking kids who would they, will you be interviewed, will you be interviewed, and everyone said no, 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 no. And then eventually this girl, Heavy D, Danielle, who we ended up following, said, yeah, sure, I'll be interviewed, just come with me to the corner where people won't bother us, and I'll talk to you. And she did an interview for about an hour, which was like an incredible interview. And she told us she'd been on the streets for 10 years, and she was really able to articulate what it was like. She explained, what had happened with her parents, why she felt, and it was just so I don't know too much about the subjects, they whittled that down to about 5 minutes for me to see. And then I was like, okay, that's enough for me to say, okay, I want to learn more about her and we'll move in with her and see what her life is like. So, we got a lot of no's with that one, and again, it came back to just, making, using no as a turn on. Like, when I hear no, I'm like, perfect, that's our starting point. And the other example of that would be we have this episode about a poker player, and we're following around this poker player for a week, and he's in Vegas, in New York City, in London, he's all over the place, and we have a lot of shots of him playing poker and in these various games, but I wanted to do this, I can get a little bit nerdy at times, and there was this one shot that I wanted to do that was going to be this shot that I sped up, so it just showed how long he played poker for. But in casinos, I couldn't come in with a tripod and set it up. So I asked him if he could come to the Viacom MTV studios, where they shoot TRL or used to shoot TRL and stuff, or the 7 now or whatever it may be, and I would just film him playing poker with his friends. So I asked him, his name is Nick, and Nick has millions and millions of dollars. I said, Nick, would you mind, set up a small game and just play, and I'm gonna shoot you and for an hour, and you don't have to even talk, hang out, whatever. It's just this cool visual look that I'm going for that I'm going to use as B-roll in the episode. And he was like, cool, man. I don't know if you've seen the episode, but he was like, cool, man. Yeah, sounds good. He was very laid back. And so the day before, I called him just to remind him, because I figured he was either A, forgot, or B, was in another country blowing money somewhere. And so I said, hey Nick, you're good for the game tomorrow, right? And he goes, yeah, I got it. I was like, cool. So the next day I came in, it was 1 o'clock. I'll never forget. I walked in, and not in my office, but in the corner where there's a big boardroom, there's 12 dudes hanging. And Nick's right there, and I'm like, Nick, what's going on? He goes, well, I brought a bunch of guys to play poker. I said, oh, it's not that big of a deal. I only need 3 or 4 guys. I'm just shooting you. I'm not even shooting anyone else. He goes, yeah, but I like you, Jenks, and I trust you, and I want to make this legit. So we're going to play poker. And I was like, all right, cool, that's great. You don't need to play for a lot of money. Just play the game. I'll be back in an hour. My buddy's going to shoot it. All good. And so, you know, I go to the editing room because we're in the MTV offices. So I go to my editing room, I'm editing, and I come back an hour later, and I look at one of the production assistants on the show, and I said, "Are they still playing?" And she's like, "Yeah, they're playing. They seem to be playing for a lot of money." And I was like, "Oh God, oh my God." Viacom MTV, like it's very corporate. You're not allowed to like switch offices, much less like, you know, gamble money. So I was like, all right, cool, you know, as long as a few $100s, whatever. So I go back and I edit. I come back out 5 hours later. They're still in there. And I'm like, good God. So I look at the production assistant. She's now sweating. And she goes, Jenks, I think we have a problem. And I'm like, what? I'm pretty sure they're betting a lot of money. And I'm like, how do you know that? And she goes, I'm like, what? She's like, look at the window, look at the window. And I look in, and there's just like stacks of dollar bills, like all over the room. And I'm like, oh my God, I am so screwed. And so I'm like, all right, you know what? I'm not going to pretend I don't know about this. I'm just going to like go back in the editing room. Whatever happens, happens. Cut to 3 hours later. It's now like 10 o'clock. I work late hours. 10 o'clock. Nick walks in. I don't know if you've seen the episode, but when Nick loses, he's a little bit down. He walks into the room. Hey, Jenks. Hey, Nick, what's up, man? What's been going on? He goes, we just finished the game. I'm like, oh my God, you just finished the game? You've been playing for 10 hours? I go, great. We got the shot. Like, we got the shot 9 hours ago. That's great, though, that you're done. And he goes, yeah. I'm like, Nick, what's wrong? He goes, nothing, you know, I just get bummed out when I lose $25,000, that's all. Dude, I was going for a shot. You just spent that's the most expensive shot I've ever had in my life. And I'm like, I'm really sorry, man. I'm really sorry, but like, I can't pay you back. But I'm like, he goes, oh no, it's fine. I don't care. You should talk to Eddie though. Eddie lost $250,000. Oh my God, you have to be kidding me. So I never told, I'm sure we're filming this somewhere, so I'm sure MTV will find out eventually, but that was definitely breaking some corporate rules right there. And it was also just, go back to this, call me cheesy, but there's some reoccurring themes here, and one would be, no casino would let me set up a tripod to get my shot, and I wanted the shot. And maybe I'm obstinate, maybe I'm stubborn, but I wanted the freaking shot. And so I broke various Viacom rules, and made some guy named Eddie spend $250,000 and got the shot that I wanted, even if everyone said that I couldn't do it. So just goes back to that whole, don't take no for an answer. And just an FYI, Rhea ended up not using the shot at all in the episode. So.